Howdy, everyone, you be Voltage, and what would you expect? If Smash Bracket uploads a video or records a video, obviously I'm gonna watch it. Because this thing, I've been waiting for quite a while to actually watch this thing. It's Ike versus Richter Belmont. This one's actually one I don't know much about either, honestly. I played Castlevania in the past, but that was a while back. And I played on emulator as well. Ike, his game I've never played at all, so I don't know what he's about, honestly. So I'm really interested to see what happens in this fight. I want to see, personally, if I had to pick one, better get rid of this thing on actually. If I have to pick, I'll probably have to say Richter to win, because I'd rather him win than Ike, because I'm still pretty pissed off that Robin won against Rosalina. A goddess lost to a swords fighter with animated hair, I guess. I don't know much about Robin. But let's see what happens, I guess, because I'm really excited to see what happens in Ike versus Richter. Also, that can be the premiere second kind of thing for the kind of thing, which is going to be interesting to just... Let's skip that part, and I'll be back in a minute, I guess.
One of the greatest mercenaries to ever.
Let's do this.
I'm Levi, and this is Smash.
Levi, this is new.
The show where we put every character from Super Smash Bros.
Min-Min versus Little Mac, Fox versus Sonic.
And one contender for that title is Richter Belmont, the hero of Castlevania. And I know what you're thinking. Richter Belmont? I hardly know her Belmont. But Richter is one of the coolest protagonists in the series. Not only does he have a killer intro cutscene, but he just might be the most 80s action hero vampire slayer to ever vampire slay. Which, for as long as he lived, was all he ever knew.
Yeah.
He was the descendant in a long line of vampire slayers that stretches back to his great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandpa.
Jesus Christ.
Gramps put his fiance's soul into a whip called the Vampire Killer to fight the scariest man in existence at the time, named Walter.
What?
With some kind of weird fusion mumbo-jumbo, from Walter's soul, Dracula was born.
Oh.
The big bad evil guy of Castlevania who was destined to revive every 100 years. While his power seemed insurmountable, it's like Indiana Jones always said, when there's a whip, there's a way. The sacred whip, Vampire Killer, was passed down generation to generation in the Belmont clan for the sole purpose of killing vampires. Well,
he's fast to create after images.
Leon's legs caught on fire when he kicked things. This isn't important for Richter. I just figured that knowing it would make your life better.
1 second. Need to make the quality not do probably 480.
Aside from that, Belmonts became obsessed with killing vampires. Richter spent his early years studying the arts required to defeat these things. Anywhere from magic, combat, weaponry, and, whatever this is.
Oh my god.
During this pivotal time of his life, Richter mastered each and every holy weapon of the Belmont clan. Things like crosses, knives, axes, smoke clouds, and holy water to burn the evil out of you. How one masters the art of water fighting is beyond me. I'll give it a pass. One of the most notable of these weapons is his pocket watch, which, unlike the one passed down by my grandfather, could stop time.
What?
While his enemies were frozen in time, Richter had
That's
to whip his enemies into
kind of broken.
He could also turn invisible and intangible, and could even muster up the strength to throw a holy book at people, really giving a new meaning to Bible bashing. For the most part, each of these were standard Belmont inventory, but Richter had an ace up his sleeve.
Richter was occasionally called the most powerful Belmont, and it wasn't without reason. Unlike Belmonts before him, Richter could activate an ability called Item Crash.
Item Crash caused each of his weapons to enter a superpowered state where he could do a whole bunch of crazy stuff, like chuck tons of knives at his enemies, summon rain made of holy water, and ignite the Vampire Killer for a powerful blow that also briefly makes him invincible.
Oh!
Whip something hard enough
Invincibility!
That is the true power of a Belmont, he thinks.
Alright, if I was Dracula, fighting someone who could whip something so hard that it spontaneously combusts and turns invincible, dude, honestly, I would just go home.
Yeah, I bet you just retreat.
Richter could also whip strong enough to shatter large amounts of crystal.
Wow.
Not only that, but he was fast enough to slap bullets out of the air and outplay incredibly skilled enemies like Dracula himself.
Whip bullets?
Yeah, apparently.
Speaking of whipping weaponry, This one time when I was 10, I bought a bullwhip at scout camp, and I thought it would look really cool if I tried to whip a throwing knife out of a tree, but rather than looking like the coolest person you ever seen in your whole dang life like I thought I would, it immediately sliced the whip completely apart and destroyed it.
I'm not surprised.
So, yeah, I've got to say I'm a little jealous of Richter. Dracula must not have even known what hit him. Imagine being the big bad evil guy for centuries, right? All the power and grandeur.
They get him boom right across the face with a whip.
And then one day you're outplayed by a bullet-slapping boy in a headband who can't even legally drink.
Can't even legally drink.
Let's talk about that fight with Dracula, though. Although Belmonts trained their whole lives for the chance to slay a vampire, Dracula's terror was sporadic enough that not all Belmonts got the chance to fight him. And the ones who do generally have no real warning of when he would rise again, meaning they had to be ready to go at the drop of a whip. But Dracula did always resurrect eventually, and he came back stronger each time.
Fun.
While this implies that each Belmont also gets stronger with each generation,
Probably.
it doesn't make it an easy fight.
Especially when you consider that Richter was only a teenager when the call to action came. When I was 19, I was impressed with myself for working at Dairy Queen and Papa John's at the same time. But Richter's over here showing off by killing vampires, getting engaged, and moonwalking. For only the fiercest of warriors, like the Belmonts and Michael Jackson.
When the call to action did come, Richter immediately leapt into battle and fought off death itself. Not only so that he could kill Dracula, which he had trained for his entire life, but also to rescue his fiancée, Annette, who Dracula had kidnapped.
You know, if I kept getting murdered to death by the same bloodline over and over, I'd probably stray away from kidnapping their one true love.
Yeah.
As bravely as he could, but in some timelines he was too late. His love had been turned from Annette into a vampire. Left with no other option, Richter was forced to fight for his life. And with his back against the wall, he was forced to kill the only woman he ever loved. With his heart broken and his whip stained by the blood of the woman he loved most, Richter forced himself to calm down and focus on what mattered most for the greater good, slaying Dracula.
It didn't take long before Richter found the Vampire Lord and battled him in a showdown to the death. His 19 years of training and hard work were finally put to the test, and in the end, Richter came out the victor. But in the wake of his victory, he realized he had nothing left to live for. He had killed his fiancée, and at the age of 19 already accomplished what he had been training his whole life for. His actions gave the world peace, but robbed him of purpose, and it felt as if nothing mattered. As if he didn't matter.
He spent years thinking back to the glory days when Dracula still lived and he had love and purpose in his life. Unfortunately, feelings like this attract evil wizards like flies to honey. And eventually, an evil magician named Shaft discovered Richter's plight.
Imagine the struggle this man must have gone through to be an intimidating evil bad guy when his name was Shaft.
I mean, maybe, but he more than earned his name by completely shafting Richter's life. Shaft noticed that these dark feelings within Richter were slowly eating away at his sanity. While he'd once been a pillar of justice, he now wanted nothing more than something to fight for, anything to fight for. So Shaft took these dark feelings and amplified them so much that Richter became what he used to hate most, a servant of darkness. And in a frenzy of despair, Richter sought to revive Dracula himself, so that he could continue to fight for all eternity, reliving his glory days over and over, and giving Richter something to live for once more. But when he was put to a stop by some old allies, he realized what he actually was in his life.
He had lost nearly everything he loved, but that didn't mean he had nothing left to give. His situation wasn't unique. Every Belmont spent their life training to become a slayer of vampires, and those who never got the chance to fight Dracula lived empty lives. Their family knew nothing but violence and monster hunting, so Richter decided to break the chain of despair and give the whip to a new family line, the Morris clan via Jonathan Morris.
Breaking the family bloodline's claim over the whip was like the biggest no-no that a Belmont could have done. But Richter was tired of his family being a clan full of dysfunctional he-men. So Richter betrayed his family so that their future may be brighter.
But he didn't leave the whip entirely Belmont free. That would be too simple. The whip held a part of his essence within it, and in order to wield it, an individual had to be worthy enough and powerful enough to defeat Richter in battle.
And while Jonathan Morris did eventually beat Richter, Richter's determination to test those who wielded the whip only cemented how he viewed him. One of the greatest Belmonts of all time, who didn't just slay vampires.
I'm gonna have to finish this video in a bit, I guess. Because it's dinner time. I'm about to continue Ike versus Richter. Let's continue where we were. An hour later, fun.
But also beat his inner demons and gave every last part of himself so that his family could be protected and the Belmonts might live a life of peace at last. Fire Emblem is no stranger to tragedy. It's a series that doesn't pull its punches, and anyone can die
Yep.
at any minute. But through the wild twists and turns of Fire Emblem, one scrappy swordsman stands unique among the rest. Someone who isn't afraid to speak his mind, do what's right, and look tragedy in the face, only to rise above it and ascend to new heights.
Meet Ike, a teenager who was born in the land of Gallia, alongside his sister Mist.
When will I get my chance to collab with you? Come on, dude.
Ike grew up alongside his father's group of sellswords, the Grail Mercenaries, and joined their ranks at the age of 17. He may have been a minor, but he was a
I would
major
love to
member of the
commentate on one of
As
these
the
things.
son of a legendary mercenary, Ike had trained his whole life in swordplay. Though he was admittedly inexperienced, Ike worked as hard as he possibly could to live up to his father's reputation. He trained with Griel each day. and
Perfectly on
practiced
character I know better than these
as
guys.
strong as he possibly could, and he applied that experience to his combat as a mercenary.
And that's the kind of power that can only come from hard work, raw talent, and lots of meat.
What kind of supplements do you use to get such muscle definition?
I eat meat.
Alright, to hell with fruit and veggies then. Anyways, despite the land war, the group lived their lives as swords for hire, assisting whomever would pay their fees and staying politically.
I'm honestly wondering who will win this fight, because I'm actually pretty interested to see who's going to win it. Because I honestly...
Alright, pro tip for Grail and his mercenaries: if someone in Fire Emblem is wearing an ornate dress and has green hair, there's a pretty good chance that they're important.
Yeah.
They couldn't bring themselves to turn her back over to those who were chasing her, so they were left with no choice but to lead her to safety. While the Grail mercenaries were now politically involved, they kept their same high spirits and followed their leader with the utmost loyalty, until everything changed.
It was a dark and stormy night when Ike's father disappeared into the woods. Ike noticed his departure and followed him through the thicket, but when he caught up to Griel, he found him locked in a fierce battle with a mysterious warrior clad in black armor. But Ike's father was a war hero. As far as
This is the Black Knight.
Nobody could beat him in a fight.
He's a assist trophy from Smash Bros.
That did not age well.
That's why I
Grail's
know.
power gave out, and the Black Knight's sword stabbed him through the chest, killing him in front of Ike and paralyzing Ike with fear. Ike tried to fight back, but was completely powerless to do anything against the man who had just murdered his father. All of
Ooh.
his training and all of his hard work wasn't enough in the end to save one of the people he loved most in the world. And it wasn't really enough to save himself either.
As the Black Knight prepared to finish him off, Ike realized all of his strength had been for nothing. Fortunately, he was saved by a Deus Ex Tiger Man who roared, scaring the knight off. It makes sense in the context of the story, I promise.
Tigers aside, there was nothing that Ike could do to bring back his father. In his dying breath, Grail implored Ike to take care of his sister and become the new leader of the Grail Mercenaries. A fact that the mercenaries did not take well, or at least some of them.
Many of the mercenaries were skeptical, and a few walked out of the group entirely, but Ike did not back down from the challenge. He may have been inexperienced, but that didn't stop him from putting every last ounce of courage into his new calling. Not only was it what his father would have wanted, Ike knew that it also had to be the right thing to do.
Ike led his militia through the kingdom, discovering the race of shapeshifters called Lagoos along the way. This is where the scary Tiger Man came from. They, as a species, were heavily discriminated against in the land. But Ike never cared about that. He saw them as equals and treated them the exact same way he would treat anyone else. And that's one of Ike's defining character traits.
He doesn't care who you are, Lagoos or nobility. He will treat you plainly and tell you exactly what he thinks. If you are a good person, he will treat you well. If you aren't, he isn't likely to treat you with respect. He doesn't care about status or titles.
Heck, when he was given nobility by a kingdom that his troops went on to help, Ike was pretty against the whole idea. He eventually rejected the nobility entirely, preferring to rough it on his own. But for now, he'd play along if that's what it took to find the evil king behind the war and put an end to it.
Ike had the legend of his father to live up to, and he didn't disappoint. He led his mercenaries through dozens of battles to reach the king. Through all of the political intrigue and warfare, one thing never left Ike's mind. The Black Knight that killed his father was still out there.
That would make
As fate
sense.
would have it, when he was journeying to save the kingdom, he came across the Black Knight. With his sword in hand and his sister by his side, he fought fearlessly against his father's killer in an epic duel, and was just able to squeeze out a win. The strength that he gained along the way allowed him to not only physically overcome the Black Knight, but it was also a symbolic affirmation to Ike that he'd finally reached the level of power that his father fought at, and he was finally worthy to call himself leader of the Grail Mercenaries. This victory was in part thanks to Ike's legendary blade, Ragnall. This weapon's been infused with the essence of a goddess, which gave Ike the power of blue flames, allowing Ike to strike foes
Seriously?
with his sword.
What is all these things being goddess or god weapons? Seriously. That is
They
stupid.
summoned the In a fierce battle, Ike was able to defeat the king and win the war, bringing peace to the land.
In the wake of the war, Princess Olympia became queen, and Ike lived his life as a noble, but not for long. He found that he didn't care for the politics and slyness of nobility, and resigned from his noble status, choosing to return to the life of a mercenary, before returning a few years later to kill a goddess and wander into the wilderness where nobody would ever see him again. But that's a different story.
Ike wasn't just a straight-shooting, good-hearted hero, though. He's also repeatedly been called the strongest hero in Fire Emblem, which is really saying something in a world where people can topple massive buildings with almost no effort. And Ike goes beyond that with his strength and durability.
Yeah, he's insane. He can shrug off attacks from giant meteors being ripped from space and slammed into him. Not only that, he can one-shot enemies that can withstand that same amount of force.
By looking at the size and speed of this meteor,
My
you can
God.
calculate that it would be hitting Ike with
Yeah,
about
Victor's so...
terajoules per centimeter squared of force. That's like the
Gotta be-
power of the little boy nuclear bomb behind each of Ike's attacks.
He's fast, too. He can block arrows so fast that time seems to completely stop by comparison, and he can dodge meteors pulled down from space. These feats would require him to be capable of moving at speeds up to Mach 5,000.
What the hell is these Fire Emblem characters? Jesus Christ.
He's got a bunch of skills to back up his stats. He can deflect incoming attacks to reduce
Okay, then.
by 80%.
This is
and he can
kinda
also
stupid.
reduce any damage taken with counter and distant counter. With Frenzy, he can also reduce the damage taken by a proportional amount to any speed advantage he may have, capped at a 40% speed reduction. Which, given that he's moving nearly 6,000 times the speed of sound, means that he's going to have that advantage pretty dang often.
He can also poison his opponents with each strike, disable his enemy's skills, stop his enemies from healing, and invert all stat boosts his enemy may have had, turning what would have been an advantage into a disadvantage.
And this is all without mentioning his ability to stop most enemies from ever approaching him with the skill Obstruct. He can also survive otherwise lethal attacks with Miracle, boost his damage by 150%, regenerate health with Renewal, or use his signature abilities, Ether and Radiant Ether.
Ether allows Ike to heal 50% of the damage he deals, but more importantly, it negates his opponent's durability, attacking them as if they had no defense at all.
But all of these abilities and
This is
stats
stupid.
aren't what make Ike so special.
Like,
Ike is
very
the best in
stupid.
everyone, regardless of who they are or where they came from. He started as a young teenager completely out of his element and forced into a position of leadership that, frankly, he wasn't ready for. He had almost
Richter,
no experience,
congratulations.
but despite
You're-
the discomfort of
you're just-
this, and despite the lack of belief from even close friends, and despite actively grieving his father, Ike wasn't afraid to step up and face the challenge.
This is
He knew what
stupid.
was right, and he knew
Why are
what he
all Fire Emblem
he knew
characters
what he had to
cracked as
protect, no matter how
hell?
daunting the task before him seemed, Ike would never stop fighting for his friends.
But now it's time to get into the fight and find out who will advance on to the next round of the Smash bracket.
You serious?
Will be eliminated.
This is a stomp. It doesn't matter what weird crap that that Richter has.
You don't belong in this world, monster!
Thanks for the assist. Thought he had me there. The name's Ike.
Richter Belmont, but no need to thank me. I've been meaning to deal with death for weeks.
Have my thanks, but actually, I'm here on my own accord. I've been sent to take this castle on behalf of my...
This castle isn't yours to take.
I wasn't asking.
Only two sorts seek out this place of their own will. The Belmonts, or those who would do us harm. And you are no Belmont! Have it!
All right then.
Okay. You got moves, big guy. Ow. Jesus Christ, Ike.
What kind of power? Don't forfeit your life over some building. Simply vacate the castle.
No! Your strength betrays your human mask,
Oh,
demon.
man.
Show me your true form!
You serious? You threw paper at him. Ow. Whew. That's not yours.
Relinquish your human puppet, monster. By the flames of God, be gone!
I'm not the demon you think me to be, but I'm willing to become one to protect my friends. Last chance. Stand down.
It's not that simple. If I were to stand aside, there would be nothing stopping the triumph of wickedness and evil.
Wait.
There are some fates worse than death.
The stopwatch.
You're wrong. Good. Evil. It's not something you are. It's something you choose each day. And I fight for good.
You sound like someone I once knew. She believed that the brightest light would always shine through in the end. Let's prove her right.
Oh, he's going Grand Cross already.
This castle will be protected. Rest well, Richter Belmont.
Is he dead?
And there you go.
Before we go further, I just want to give a huge shout out to Roundtable Animation for that incredible Ike versus Richter fight. It's not easy to animate the physics of a metal chain whip, so
Yeah.
if you're watching, thanks for all you do.
I can tell that we are
In some
dead.
ways, this was a close fight, but in other ways, it was a complete stop of the matchup.
Well, it was a stomp, but Richter is still imposing when taken in isolation.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with speed. If we are extremely generous and say that these bullets are moving at the same speed of real-life bullets, we've got Richter whipping at about 3.2 times the speed of sound.
Wow.
Which sounds impressive until you realize that even with this bullet feat, Ike is moving over 1,800 times faster than that. And Ike is also hitting with enough power to kill Richter in a single shot.
Oh god.
But honestly, we have one guy hitting with the power of a nuclear bomb, and another guy breaking a glorified rock. Heck, that's not even the only time Ike's done something like that either. Rest in peace, Weird Castle.
It's not like Richter was helpless, though. Richter could theoretically stop time, which would give him more than enough time to land some solid attacks.
I mean, he's a little helpless. Even if we assume that Ike's abilities wouldn't work when time is frozen, Richter could whip away to his heart's content, but not even come close to the amount of hits required to kill Ike. And when he's not frozen, Ike's counter and distant counter abilities are also devastating for Richter.
Mm-hmm.
Each attack would also be attacking Richter himself, and it would only take a few of these for Richter to kill himself in a fight. If we assume that Ike's abilities are always active as a passive thing, Ike could be asleep for the entire fight and still easily take the win.
Yeah, assuming Ike's skills work when he's sleeping would be way too generous, but unfortunately for Richter, he is going up against a far faster opponent who wouldn't hesitate to kill him in an instant if given the opportunity. Ike isn't super likely to even let Richter reach for one of his weapons. Even without his skills, Ike's stats and training are more than enough to secure a win here. but with his deadly skills added in, this just isn't even close.
At the end of the day, Ike is the winner, and we'll be moving on.
Who's
to the
next is my
round of
question
the
now.
Smash bracket. Next time on the Smash.
Who's up? Come on. Luigi! Finally, one of the Green Brothers show up. Who's he facing? I forgot who he was facing. I actually forgot. He's versus Simon? Oh no, Simon? Boo versus Gengar. I remember that. Luigi versus Simon and Boo versus Gengar. I knew Boo versus Gengar was going to come up soon. Finally, yes! But Luigi versus Simon, oh, poor Luigi. I really don't think he's going to win that fight. Unless every single one of his powers are factored into it, including invincibility ones, then he will not have fun. I'm also happy that King versus Gengar is going to happen finally, because I've been waiting for them for a long while, because I've been hyped for that one. Because personally, I do think that Gengar has a good chance for that with Dynamax. I mean, with Gigantamax form possible available. But that might not be available, honestly. But if it is, then I think that Gengar would have that win, honestly. And guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. Bye-bye!